Let's talk about the events of my first Batman movie in my DC cinematic universe. We start off, and classic, it's a crime happening in Gotham. A shipment of weapons being delivered to Gotham Harbor is attempting to be abducted by a rival gang. As the shootout ensues, some men start disappearing. It seems as though the shadows themselves are out against these men. We hear that telltale cape swoosh fall down behind a man, his gun pointed forward, and he says, "I know you're there, Bats." We see the caped figure standing behind him. The man whips around, and the flashlight of his gun illuminates Dick Grayson. And Dick Grayson says, "Almost," and takes the man out instantly. Two more men suddenly turn the corner to attack this guy, but then Batman drops down on top of them, taking them out simultaneously. Batman and Robin give each other a little bit of a status update, as it turns out that Robin was handling the south side of the docks and Batman was handling the north side of the docks, and these were the last three guys of both gangs. They kneel down, they tie up the three guys, and Dick asks Bruce, "So which one of us is going to call Jim?" To which Bruce reveals, "I called him 5 minutes ago." And just as he says that, we see red and blue sirens blaring, and the GCPD and Commissioner Jim Gordon show up to the scene. This gives us a little bit of a good establishing scene. We get to meet some of the good GCPD officers. I'm talking like Renee Montoya, Harvey Bullock, classic. And we get to see that Batman and Robin work very much in tandem with the GCPD. It is a very good cooperative relationship, and the GCPD do not hate these guys. They view them as assets. As they are touching base with Jim, it is revealed to us, the audience, that these two warring factions of gangs are in fact Two-Face's men and Penguin's men. They've been having a rather increasingly bloody exchange, battling for who gets to be the kingpin of crime within Gotham City, and this hit on this weapons delivery seems to be the latest and biggest hit in this war. And just about as they're about to finish up this meeting with Jim, Jim lets Batman know something. Carmine Falcone is on his deathbed. And then Jim asks Batman if he'd be willing to interrogate Carmine, see if he could get any last-minute confessions from the old mobster. Yada yada, opening title sequence, very cool. We cut back, we're at a hospital, Carmine Falcone lying, dying in a bed, and now Batman stands above him. Batman and Carmine talk, but the conversation, while it feels a little adversarial, it's a little more, I'm hesitant to say flirty, because in my universe, Carmine's downfall, his entire empire, was taken down the year this dude started. And it wasn't taken down by this guy. It was taken down by Joker, and this guy took Joker down. So the relationship between Carmine and Batman is very weird. Very like, oh, but I bet I could have fucked you up, though. Very much kind of like that. And Carmine decides his whole family is dead, all of his men are dead, he just spent the rest of his remainder of life rotting in prison. Fuck it. He just confesses everything. He just comes completely clean because he respects this guy. He rattles off so many different crimes, but key among them being he was the one who ordered the hit on Thomas and Martha Wayne. Just as he says that, we see Batman's eyes go wide, and we cut outside of the room where we see Jim Gordon and Dick Grayson listening in to this conversation, and Dick's eyes go wide, and Jim's eyes go wide just because he knows, like, whoa, hey, that's a pretty fucking big case for this city. But we focus back down on Dick, and we see that Dick Grayson starts to look a little worried. And that is because back in the room, Batman starts getting kind of aggressive with Carmine. Batman keeps redirecting the questions, confessions of other crimes, back to the Waynes, asking more, asking why he did it, asking who was the one who pulled the trigger. Carmine is trying to sort of brush all that aside, like, hey, it doesn't really matter. I'm the dude who ordered the hit, right? Who cares if the dude fucked up and also killed the mom, leaving the kid an orphan? That was a him thing. That wasn't my thing. I punished the guy for that. Didn't kill him, though. And Carmine's sort of lax attitude about this entire thing really pisses off Bruce, and Bruce grabs Carmine, just shaking him, demanding that he tells him who did it. And finally, he scares Carmine enough that Carmine admits it. And it is this terrified Carmine that utters his last breath and tells Batman the name of the man who killed the Waynes. He was a guy really low on the roster. He was a new kid. His name was Joe, and everyone just called him Chill. Batman storms out of the room with Jim Gordon asking him what the hell was that, and all Batman says is Joe Chill. And he walks out of the building and he grapples away onto a rooftop and glides through the night leaving Dick behind with Jim Gordon. We then cut to the Batcave where we see Alfred Pennyworth waiting with a cup of tea for the young Master Dick Grayson. Sitting at the Bat computer already deep into research is Batman looking up the name Joe Chill. Robin tries to make a joke about Batman abandoning him back there, but Batman snaps at Robin. Alfred then chastises Batman for speaking to Dick that way, but then Batman yells at Alfred. Alfred and Dick look at each other and agree that maybe it's best to leave him alone for a little while, and they leave the cave. The next morning, Dick Grayson is sitting down to eat some breakfast when he realizes that Bruce hasn't come down for breakfast. Dick looks to Alfred, and Alfred simply just nods, confirming that Bruce has been down in the cave all night looking this dude up. Robin heads down to the cave and points out that while it is good that Bruce has this name, he shouldn't be staying up all night to do this. After all, they still need to stop this turf war between Penguin and Two-Face. And when Dick tries to snap Bruce out of his hyper-fixation, Bruce lashes out at Dick. Don't worry, he's not gonna hit him. I mean, just like he stands up and he gets in his face yelling at him that he doesn't know what it's like. He doesn't know what it's like to go through an entire life hunting down the man who killed his parents. And Dick shoots back with, of course he doesn't, because Bruce made sure that he caught Tony Zuko less than a week after the Graysons were murdered. He points out to Bruce that Bruce was on that hunt and took those guys down alone, but things are different now. He's not just Batman. They are Batman and Robin. They are partners, and Bruce needs to get over his own shit and let him help. But Bruce says no, and a disheartened Dick Grayson heads to school. And when he's at school, that's when we are introduced to his girlfriend, Ms. Barbara Gordon. We get some cute little adorable scenes of school, them two being all lovey-dovey. Barbara asks Dick if they can hang out that night, but Dick has to unfortunately turn her down, saying he has a lot of work to do tonight. You see, Dick Grayson explains away his vigilante shit simply by saying that Bruce is training him to inherit the role of CEO of Wayne Industries one day, and Bruce takes it pretty seriously. While Dick Grayson is at school, back at Wayne Manor, Alfred is trying to talk some sense into his son. And then we get, if you haven't heard it, go listen to the speech. It's just the Batman yells at Alfred's speech from Batman Arkham Origins. Basically, that entire interaction happens. And so now Batman has very loudly cut off both Alfred and Dick, adamantly stating that he is going to do this investigation by himself. While Batman is out on his solo investigation, we follow Dick Grayson working with Jim Gordon as Dick Grayson alone tries to take down this turf war between Penguin and Two-Face. Batman's investigation leads him down more older gang contacts of Carmine Falcone, anyone still alive from the pre-Joker era. Meanwhile, Dick is trying to hunt down the weapons supplier who is supplying the weapons for this gang war, because the new weapons supplier within Gotham is bringing in some pretty heavy fucking artillery into the city. And then the two investigations start to slowly collide when this guy finds out that someone does know that name Joe Chill. Penguin. And this guy goes to take down Two-Face by himself. So while Batman pulls up and parks in an alleyway outside of the Iceberg Lounge and goes to interrogate Penguin, we get a solo fight scene of Dick Grayson fighting off Two-Face's goons, getting to Two-Face. He and Penguin have a pretty serious talk, but there's no fight scene because basically everyone's too afraid of Batman to try and start shit with him. And the key bit of information that Batman gets from Penguin at the end of this whole conversation is that Joe Chill's real name was Joseph Frediano. Frediano is literally just Italian for cold. So there's the nickname for you. And when he goes back outside to the alley, he finds that the Batmobile has been completely stripped of its wheels. Someone managed to bypass the Batmobile's security system, disengage all of the security protocols, and then steal his fucking wheels. And just as he's wondering who did this, he hears two voices coming from behind him. Child voices talking about how now that they got the wheels off, it should be much easier to get in there and take some of the really good shit. And when Batman turns around, he is face to face with two young boys, one who seems to be about 12 and one who seems to be about 8. It's Jason Todd and Tim Drake. Batman takes a step towards them and Jason leaps off. Jason starts doing some dope fucking parkour, like climbing up a roof to get out of there, and meanwhile Tim is just frozen staring at Batman. We cut up to the rooftop where Jason, hops up onto the roof and starts running. He looks behind him to make sure Batman isn't there, and then he runs into someone. He falls to the ground and he looks up, and it was Batman. Batman just did a quick grapple flip land right in front of Jason. It was awesome. We then get a scene of Batman talking to these two kids. How did they bypass his shit? How did they steal his wheels? Why did they steal his wheels? They're two orphans living in Gotham City who are horribly taken care of because the city has incredibly shitty infrastructure for taking care of kids. They take Batman back to the foster home where they live, but no one is there. It's just these two kids, and the place is horribly run down. That is when we get their two backstories, revealing that Tim Drake is insanely smart, and he's the one who hacked Batman's shit. And Jason Todd is just sort of like the muscle of the operation. He's no dummy, but he's not hack the Batmobile at age 8 with a busted iPad they found in a dumpster smart. And when they're all talking, Tim Drake asks if he can ask Batman a question. And Jason says, oh, here we go again. And Tim says, I'm right. And Batman says, about what? And Tim Drake just looks at Batman and asks, are you Bruce Wayne? And Bruce is just baffled at this. He's caught completely off guard. And even Jason sees this and goes, oh my God, you are. Bruce tries to deny it, but now both boys are dead set sure that they knew it. They got it. They were right the whole time. Jason now completely flip-flopping his thing from thinking Tim was stupid to being like, oh yeah, I totally knew it too. And when Batman asks how he knew that, that's when we get the little reveal that Tim Drake's dad was Dick Grayson's old gymnastics coach. He was the coach for Gotham High, the one that got killed a couple of years ago. Tim sat by and watched gymnastics practice when he was a little kid because his dad had to work, and it was like after school hours, so he had Tim. And so Tim just watched Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon do a whole bunch of stuff. And this kid also loved Batman and Robin. And one day while watching a fucking YouTube clip of Batman and Robin fighting crime, Tim Drake saw this motherfucker do like a quintuple backflip shit that only he'd ever seen Dick Grayson do. And that was the glass shattering moment. Tim Drake was like, oh my God, Dick Grayson is Robin. Oh my God! Batman is Bruce Wayne! And when Batman is remembering this coach, the one that was killed a couple of years ago, Tim points out that it was Batman and Robin who stopped that guy. They're the ones who caught his dad's killer and brought him to justice. And he thanks Batman for that. And then Batman just sort of looks around at this fucking shithole that these two boys call a home and realizes that even after he saved the day and caught a murderer, this kid's life is still worse. Batman takes the kids back outside and puts the wheels back on his Batmobile, and then he turns around and straight up just hands them his credit card, and he tells them, that's going to be worth more than anything in this car could have gotten you. Don't worry, I won't report it stolen. And then Batman just drives off, just sort of questioning, what the fuck is justice? Just a little bit. Back to Dick Grayson. He's fighting through goons. He's whooping ass. He gets to Two-Face. He interrogates Two-Face. He asks where these weapons are coming from, and it's revealed that Two-Face is the one working with the weapons broker to get them into the city, and then he gets the name of this weapons broker. It's just a code name. This guy goes by nothing but the Iceman. But just after he gets that, he's hit in the back of the head. Two-Face's goons ambush this guy, and he has to fight his way out, and he gets really fucked up getting out of there. He lives, don't worry, but he hobbles back to the mansion. And unfortunately, he gets there bleeding, bruised, and in a Robin costume. He gets helped by Alfred through the manor to get to his room, just as Barbara Gordon arrives for a surprise visit with her boyfriend. Barbara, of course, just sort of forces her way into the manor and helps Alfred take care of Dick. They get him out of the armor, they get compresses on him, Alfred starts sewing up the actual open wounds in him, and Barbara asks for the whole breakdown of what the fuck is going on. Just as all this is happening, Bruce gets back home. Now, Batman is several types of upset in this scene right now because he's upset that this dude gave away their secret identity to the daughter of this dude's best friend cop that they really cannot tell their secret identity because of plausible deniability of vigilantism and all that kind of jazz. And he's upset that this guy tried to do it alone without him, but then he's even more upset that because he wasn't there to help, his son got fucked up in the line of duty. It's a whole bunch of different stuff. And so this guy makes him tell him what was going on, and Dick just lets him know, like, I was doing the investigation we were supposed to be doing, and Two-Face's guys got me. And so this guy storms out to go speak to Two-Face. We get a very fun scene of this dude just terrorizing Two-Face's men. Like, you fucked with my son. You should not have done that level anger, as he just ruins his way through Two-Face's men to get to Two-Face. He puts the fear of God into Two-Face. He gets when the next weapons deal is going down and what is the actual name of this weapons dealer, the Iceman. And that is when Two-Face reveals that the Iceman is a gangster known as Joseph Frediano, Joe Chill. It all comes together. Full-on rampage mode, this guy heads out to the next weapons auction. And meanwhile, back at Wayne Manor, Dick Grayson is giving Barbara Gordon his entire backstory. We get the flashback to the flying Graysons. We see their death of falling from the flying trapeze. We see a young Bruce Wayne take Dick in. We get a little bit of a montage of Dick's, like, rough time the first week spending alone in this mansion. It was just him and Alfred. And then we get that scene I described from before. Bruce, dressed as Batman, standing over the 9-year-old Dick Grayson's bed, asking him to wake up and follow him. Meanwhile, back with Batman stuff, he has gotten to the auction and he is just sort of rip-tearing his way through, trying to get to Chill. We cut back to Dick's flashback and we see Dick Grayson going down the stairs of the grand foyer, the entryway to Wayne Manor, and there, tied up in the entryway with the doors flung open, rain and lightning outside, we see a beaten, bloodied, and blindfolded Tony Zuko and his 2 men, the guy that killed the Graysons. Back with Batman, he's gone all the way through. He's gotten to Chill and he is confronting Chill. He says that he knows what he did to the Waynes. He knows everything. Chill is freaking out because how the fuck could this guy possibly know? That was like 40 years ago. That was a lifetime ago. And he says exactly, and he rips off his mask, my lifetime. Batman is just beating on Joe Chill and just venting about how terrible his life has been because of this lack of closure over his parents' murder. And then we cut back to Dick Grayson's flashback, and Batman looks at Dick Grayson and asks him what he wants him to do to these criminals. And then we cut back to Batman, and Joe Chill asks Batman what he's going to do to him. Is he going to kill him? We cut back to this flashback, and the young little Dick Grayson looks at Batman because in this moment he thinks Batman is testing him. He thinks that Batman wants to see if he has what it takes to be a hero. And the young Dick Grayson looks up at Batman and he says, turn them into the police because heroes don't kill. And we cut back to Batman staring at Joe Chill, and it's revealed that this flashback that he's been narrating this whole time, he's just been having this whole time. And Bruce looks at Chill and says, no. He throws Chill to the ground, says, years ago, I would have. But he has realized, especially in the last couple of days, that this isn't justice. The world wouldn't be a better place if Joe Chill wasn't in it anymore. He needs to be better than himself. He needs to be a hero, and heroes don't kill. There's a huge explosion in the warehouse to the back. When this dude was fighting, a little bit of a fire was started. That fire had spread and got into a big stack of explosives, and now the warehouse is going down. So Batman throws that cowl back on, leaps out the fucking window to go get the dudes he knocked unconscious and get him out of the building so no one dies. And Joe Chill takes this opportunity to fucking dip. And while Batman is saving everybody, we follow Joe Chill. Joe Chill runs out of the building. He sprints down the hall. He runs and he runs and he runs, blocks and blocks, finally stopping in an alleyway. He puts his hand against the wall. He's breathing heavily. He looks around. He pulls out his phone, realizing it was smashed in the fight with Batman. He sees a couple of guys standing deeper in the alleyway. He approaches them. He pulls out his wallet, and you can see there's quite a bit of cash in there. And he offers the guy $1,000 for his cell phone. The person he offers it to pulls out a gun and points it at him, saying, How about I take the entire wallet and you get nothing? And Joe Chill just kind of looks at this guy like, do you know who I am? Bang. The dude shoots Joe Chill, takes his wallet, and leaves. And we watch as Joe Chill dies in an alley the same way that he got the Waynes. We then cut to later, chalk line around him, the police are there. Batman and Jim are catching up about everything. They managed to take down the weapons dealer that was supplying the weapons to this big gang war, so Two-Face and Penguin aren't going to be as big of an issue anymore. Two-Face's men were also beat up really heavily by Robin at first, and now Batman coming in to finish the thing. So Two-Face is down for the count for a little while. So the streets of Gotham are going to be pretty peaceful for a while. And then Batman returns home. He walks up to Dick Grayson, and he apologizes. He tells him everything that was going on. He tells him he was being unreasonable. He fucking cops up to all of his own bullshit. And he gives his boy a hug. And he says he's sorry. That's right. An emotionally mature Batman. Who the fuck would have thought? And then we cut to the next day. We're following Jason Todd and Tim Drake as they've bought themselves a lot of junk food. And they're having a pretty great time in their foster home. But then there's a knock at their door. They go there, open the fucking door, and it's the goddamn Gotham City Child Protective Services. They're swearing about how Batman ratted them out, but the CPS agent is just talking about how these kids got it pretty lucky. As they're being driven away from their foster home, the person's explaining that Wayne Enterprises bought the foster home and all orphanages in the city. And he'd started a whole new branch of the Wayne Foundation to specifically take care of disenfranchised youth within Gotham City. And as they keep driving, the kids ask where they're being taken, and the person says, oh, you're being taken to your new foster home. And as Jason Todd leans back and says, oh, great, it's gonna be another dump, the car pulls up to Wayne Manor. It's opened, and Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson are sitting there waiting. And Bruce tells the two little boys, welcome home. That you got all three Robins ready to go now.